This week, we welcome Ryan Noon, co-founder and CEO from Material Security, to join us for our first interview to discuss beyond phishing blockers, risks to email phishing, and beyond. Next up, John Gorenflow, founder and principal consultant of Fundamental Security, is going to join us and talk about hacking Ubiquiti devices. Then in the security news, how two authors became part of WRT 54G hacking history. European police and German law enforcement have taken down the illegal dark market online marketplace, and not the one from 2009. Hackers compromise Mimecast, 70 unpatched Cisco vulnerabilities, and why these are not a big deal. Adobe is blocking Flash content, and most containers still run as root. Actually, not and. Most containers still run as root. Watching private videos on YouTube is more like watching silent films. And get a free bag of weed when you get your vaccine. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is Security Weekly, for security professionals, by security professionals. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly. Qualys has brought together vulnerability management and patch management, letting security teams discover vulnerabilities and apply patches immediately, all within a single, unified app. Sign up for a free trial of Qualys VMDR, vulnerability management, detection, and response today at securityweekly.com/Qualys. Sophisticated attackers are targeting credentials to escalate privileges. Ativo Networks provides an innovative solution that finds, cleans, and monitors exposed credentials to reduce attack surfaces. Additionally, the solution alerts when attackers try accessing Active Directory objects while hiding data and derailing them with disinformation. Organizations can go one step further and hide real credentials among deceptive lures that lead attackers to decoys for recording TTPs and forensic evidence. Find out more at securityweekly.com/Ativo Networks and sign up for a free trial.
And welcome to the show. But first, let me introduce you to our host, Mr. Paul Sedolleran. You want to fight? Fight him!
Welcome, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. I guess you had to be watching the video for that introduction to make sense. But it is episode number 680, recorded on January 14th, 2021, right here at G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. To my left, none other than Kung Fu Fighting Larry Pesce.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that was my really bad attempt at doing bad dubs for Kung Fu movies.
Yes.
Fight?
Yes.
Fight him.
There's a lot of those downstairs. Yes. Lots of Kung Fu movies.
I can say myself, as I'm doing it, Johnny is probably totally freaking out, like, what the hell? His mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out.
Right? How to freak out the production crew. Mr. Tyler Robinson is here with us. Tyler, welcome.
Thank you very much. It wouldn't be the first time that Johnny's had to freak out this week.
Yeah, this is true. Mr. Jeff Mann is here with us. Jeff, welcome.
As always, a pleasure to be here, albeit remotely.
Mr. Lee Neely is here with us.
Hi there. It's good to be here.
Mr. Joff Thayer is also here with us. Jeff, welcome.
I'm not going to try to do any of the things that those guys did, but hi, it's great to see you. It's been a little while.
It has. If you have a specific guest or topic that you'd like us to cover on one of the shows, you can submit your suggestions for guests by visiting securityweekly.com/guests and completing the form. We review those monthly, sorta-ish, and we will get back to you if you made a submission. This segment is sponsored by Material Security. Please visit securityweekly.com/Material Security to learn more. Joining us today from Material Security is Ryan Noon, co-founder and CEO. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, y'all. It's great to be here. Actually, seriously, the highlight of my day. It's been a good day, but this is the highlight.
Oh, well, thank you so much for that, Ryan. Ryan, how'd you get your start in information security?
I did a master's degree in it, just because the economy was really crappy, if you remember, in 2008, 2009. Mm-hmm. And so the analogy that I use is like how all the baby boomers got PhDs because they didn't want to get drafted. I got a master's in networks and security from Stanford because I did not want to go and join the job market at the time. And so that's kind of how I got my start. I got I did get suspended from school for various things, and I've been like messing with computers and breaking with them. Which
wait, what do you mean? Hold on, back up, Ryan. Yep. Various things like hacking things, or
well, this is you can Google this story. It's super lame. So my high school had a really scummy IT and security dude who subsequently went to, I think, federal prison for embezzling from a poor public school in Cleveland, Ohio. But at some point, he told everybody that the Active Directory and whatever NT password, and it just got around. And then eventually, they scapegoated the kids who actually knew how computers worked. We knew the password, but we were too smart to use it because we had straight A's anyway, kind of honestly. But so that's my suspended from school, and I was literally called a cyber terrorist by the principal of the school for knowing a password that some D-bag told people. So that's not anywhere close to as good as an actual hacking story. But you're not you don't get invited to the cool cocktail hours in the cybersecurity industry if you've never been kicked out of school for something related to InfoSec. So that's my weak need story.
Damn it, that's my problem.
Right?
I was going to say, that's been my problem for years. I don't have a high school story. Crap.
If only we had computers in high school, damn it.
Hey, wait a minute.
Says Lee and Jeff.
I had computers in high school. In fact, I had to explain to my teacher why the teacher at the other school wanted to kill me for what I'd been doing on those computers. So I didn't get thrown out, but I had to do a lot of explaining.
Abacuses? I don't know what's plural.
Did you have to get permission if you used someone else's abacus, Jeff?
No, and you didn't have to use wipes either.
Gotcha.
Kind of like Joff was just doing there for a minute.
It's like the Abacus Fraud and Abuse Act.
No, I was wiping my camera lens because I looked out of focus, and I'm still out of focus. I think maybe that's just me. I don't know.
So Ryan, back to you.
Okay, I know what I signed up for here. Guys.
Yes. Okay. Good. So you got your master's degree in cybersecurity. Was that
networks and security.
Networks and security.
The truth of it is I kind of taken most of the classes during undergrad, so I kind of just did whatever for a couple, about a year and a half. So, but yeah, I did that. Then I was the first employee at a startup, which is sort of required if you go to school at Stanford University or whatever. You're in Palo Alto and they kind of make you. It's Google.
There's a law.
It's Google or a startup, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. People and I graduated in 2009, so Google, was yet to become the worst thing ever. So it was they were still
promoting we're not evil in 2009.
Yeah, no, I think they just eventually, cut out the not part. But and so I was the first employee at a not a first employee. I was the first engineer. There were some mathematicians that worked there, and it was like a DARPA spin out. And so that was my they'll give me $2,000 a week contract to hire, which was awesome because I didn't have any money, and more importantly, they let me use a 15-inch MacBook Pro. Which was way better than the 9-inch. You remember the netbooks, the EC? It was like a 1024 by 600 screen, and the old Atom chip that didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. That's what I got through grad school on, and so I got into startups because I kind of wanted to use a better computer than the one I could afford. So, and then I started a startup. It got acquired, and now this is what I do because I'm otherwise unemployable, as is evidenced by this conversation so far.
Wait, well, what was your first the startup that you created back in the day?
So the first one that I did, it was sort of a data analysis security company. I've always had this dual nature where I love data visualization and data analysis, but I really like breaking computers and messing with them and stuff. So we it was one of the it didn't go anywhere. I mean, we raised money and we had customers, and we got devoured in our crib essentially by Dropbox in 2014. Oh my God, it's been that long. Oh no. It was basically if Splunk and Tableau had a baby and you could use it on, Hadoop and unstructured crappy data. Someone told me once, my big data is crappy data and none of the tooling works. And so we kind of just built that into a company. So Tableau, if you could search and fly around the graph, and I'm kind of one of the world's most intense like graph and network visualization people. I love making like multi-million node graphs fly around screens. It's what I do when I'm like on vacation and because I have no life. And so I kind of just made an analytics product around that. And we, sold it to some companies and it was cool. But then I, discovered middle management after that. So.
Yeah. And so what drew you to working in the email security space? Which it's not as
I did not expect that.
Right? Perhaps not as sexy maybe as data visualization stuff.
I think it's sexier, okay? But yeah, like we were, talking how weird some people are with what they think is attractive. I like email. I love email. There's a guy who used to do he called games for the White Sox called Hawk Harrelson, and my dad loves him. And he'd be like, "You can send me email. I love email. I love email." Okay. And so I was unemployed living in Berlin in 2016 after I'd left Dropbox. I spent a couple of years there, made some friends, analyzed some data, and Podesta happened. Which like before the SolarWinds, like the Podesta breach was the one that we talked about as like worst thing ever in terms of most serious consequences, like that or OPM or take your pick. But I was like, I got really into it because like you want to believe that like one person can change history. That's usually used to like inspire, if you believe you can achieve and one person can change history. But like in the case of Podesta, like one person kind of did change history. A lot of individuals individually changed history that year. It was the worst year except every other one after it. And so I was like, how did this guy get hacked on his personal email account? And so I had like a random idea for like, I wonder if the Gmail API will let me do this. Like, it's not designed for this, but can I get away with it? Which is the root of every awesome thing in computers ever, which is clearly they intended them for business, but could I make a game on it? Misusing things is the root of joy and progress in computing.
Especially with APIs, Ryan. I mean, let's be frank. I think, all of us could probably raise our hands if I asked the question, have you ever abused an API in ways it was not intended? It's a hobby for a lot of us in the past.
Speaking of Google, we don't abuse it. We use it. Abuse has a very specific term when it comes to APIs, and I'm here to tell anyone from Google that's listening that nothing is abused. We use it in a creative way. Abuse is the thing that you get shut down over.
I'm glad you made that clarification, Ryan, because you definitely have tokens that associate you with the API usage that they can turn off at a moment's notice.
Yes, no, like we are, these huge companies, like we built cities on other people's continents, and that's awesome because the continents are there. It's terrifying because earthquakes are a thing, So yeah.
Yep. So what is your fascination with why do you love email so much, and why was it a challenge for you that you wanted to take on?
Oh, I mean, I love the internet. First off, like I hate the internet, but I love the internet, right? And I don't think there's so much to hate about it nowadays, obviously. Like, what is it doing to us and democracy and all the things that like, I have this like operational map of Iwo Jima behind me that people watching the video can see. And I kind of have it. One of our investors gave it to me. It's like the map for the plan for Iwo Jima. And it reminds me that like a lot of people sacrificed and worked way harder than I ever have before. So like, shut up and get back to work. So I getting back to the internet, like, which has very little to do with Iwo Jima, but I'm going to try and make the connection. It's that like, it connected the world. It democratized things. We believed until quite recently, and maybe we'll make it through, right? That like the internet would like set our creativity and our people free, and it would make us all better and happier and freer. And email is part of the internet. It's like TCP/IP and like RFC 822, and so it is this democratized thing. Like spam sucks. Phishing sucks. Like it's got its plagues, right? There's so many problems with the internet, but like I can email anybody in the whole world and they can write back. And you hear these awesome stories of like somebody emails Gabe Newell at Valve or Steve Jobs at Apple in the day, and they just reply, and since then also it is the kind of the push mechanism for the internet. People talk about HTTP and like long polling and push mechanisms and WebSockets and all these things. But like email is sort of how the internet talks to you. It's how the internet reaches out and touches you, And so it's like a public utility, and it just kind of messed everything up when John Podesta lost the entire contents of his personal inbox, And since, Gmail in '04, we've just been accumulating more and more and more data, right? And so there's like 400,000 something things in my personal account, and that's the way I like it. And Brian Krebs wrote a post about this, like, he's written a couple of just like the value of a hacked email account and what you can do if you get it. And then this came to work too, because there's G Suite and Office 365 they don't like charge extra for hard drives in the cloud exchange boxes that are glued together for 365, right? Like, it's just people are accumulating like their entire lives here, and it's useful, right? I can search for that one thing, that I need. I can find that passport that I keep in an attachment that I once sent to my significant other, and it's handy, and it's the best communication and more importantly, nobody owns it. Like, it might appear that like Microsoft and Google own it, and maybe it's kind of a functional duopoly, but it's still a standard. Like, WhatsApp, not a standard. Signal, it's a network that, like, yes, it's open source, but somebody operates that network. So it's like email is the internet, and it's important, and like it almost like knocked the lights out of our whole society. And so I love it, and I want to save it. And it needs reform like any other important institution, but it's really, really, really great. So
it's interesting to think about and talk about how powerful taking over an email account is, how much weight that carries to our own personal and business security is an email account. Because like you said, you dig in there, especially a lot of us have had email, right? A lot of us have had email for a really long time and have carried that over and over and over. And there's some stuff in there that we probably should all go back and clean up. How many of us do that?
And the fact that you're not going to is kind of how I got to building like one of the original killer demo of our software from like 2016 was just like, hey, do you want this on your personal email? Hell yeah, I do. Okay. So you're not going to actually do that, because you're going to look at it and you're like, maybe I need that, right? Like, we're all hoarders when it comes to email.
Right. But I think, what's interesting is, as security professionals, we tend to be a lot more vigilant about access, especially to things like email, because we understand the value and how powerful it is. So we are typically the first ones to use PGP to encrypt our emails. We're the first ones to enable two-factor to protect our email accounts. But largely, especially back in the day, a lot of people did not do that. And that became apparent to me. One of my friends was like, yeah, so not in technology, right? This person was, but he was like, so my ex-girlfriend kind of guessed my email password, and I'm really ashamed to tell you that, but she was really mad at me and canceled my car insurance, and was in the process of like,
you didn't model that threat, did you?
Right? Like, canceled the lease. Like, she's destroying systematically like my life. No, and all she has access to is my email and like some of the information about me that she remembered, and that's enough to basically start to, and in a lot of cases, probably destroy someone's life.
Yeah, no, like I have, in my business, you hear all these different variants of that story. Yours is especially bad. I'm glad it didn't directly happen to you, but like I have a friend of a friend who was taking a class taught by John Podesta, like some civics, politics, something class, like an actual college class, and his term paper and all the edits and the grades and stuff on it was in the John Podesta breach and put on WikiLeaks. And like, yeah, like all of it. And this is somewhat innocuous, but he was just savaged by all of his friends for his writing, is what I heard. So yeah, no, I mean, like, and that's the other thing about emails. When you email somebody, they get a copy, right? Yes. So like, we call it the suicide pact, right? Like, and it's not like, it's like you can't delete both sides of it, So it's kind of how we spread, honestly, because our customers will look at us and they'll be like, and we use analytics because it's us, right? To show them, here are all the other people that can kill you. Maybe you want to make an intro, like, we'll give you a discount,
right? Because your sent mail gets saved, and now this is where all of my sensitive documents over the years may have gone.
And they're in thousands of other people's mailboxes, right? Like, other people losing their email can embarrass you or can mess up your life. Because when you communicate with somebody, they get a copy in their mailbox. So their breach is your breach, and your breach is their breach. And the weakest link problem just dominates,
Yeah, you ever want to have a fun conversation about emails? You just go to your favorite lawyer and ask them what they think about email and retention of email. And then just sit down for a few hours.
Like delete it all, except for mine, because mine's great. No, like that's what's funny. Like I see all permutations of this. Like our general counsel wants a 6-day deletion policy, but wants unlimited for himself. I've seen this before. Or like, oh, we had a breach, so we switched to a 30-day deletion policy, and now no one knows what's going on, and we've self-lobotomized. So. Giving people better options than this is, what I've been burning my life on since 2016. And I'm happy to report that it's going okay and working pretty well.
Nice. Tyler, sorry, do you have a question, comment?
No, I was going to say this is one of the common issues that you run into where law has not kind of kept up with the times. You run into things like e-discovery, where we don't understand the ramifications of personal life. We've got single sign-on, and we have to give people access to our email per the law for e-discovery and or part of the case. Well, that entails a lot more than just email. That entails your single sign-on to your Blink, your cameras in your house, your Alexa, what you've been watching, your order purchase, your history. So not just email. Email is a record of all those things you do, but it also has access through single sign-on via email to other systems that are becoming more and more prolific. So there's a bigger game at play outside of the email as well.
Yeah, I mean, just remember the forget my password links that you get. Like if someone pops your email, anything that you sign into with that where I can forget my password is dead meat, So that's kind of how the internet works.
It's interesting, Ryan, that you say that because it's also used for authentication, like either as part of the authentication process or solely the authentication process. The fact that you can receive an email, like everyone go back through their life in the past week, how many times it's been some type of either second factor or maybe the only factor to gain access to things, such as, give you an example, someone sends you a Google Drive link and you go access and like, oh, we're going to email you a code. So you sent the link to that to my email and you sent the code then to my email.
Did you model this? You did not model this.
How is that controlling access?
It gets even worse, man, because in business context, I can go and if I want to set up a Slack trial or something on your company's domain, if I hack an email account, and I do that, and you sign up and can confirm and verify an email on mycompany.com, then you can spin up some new SaaS app and start inviting the coworkers, and you're phishing them from the SaaS app. So having my email is how much of the internet assumes that you are me.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
And to this day, it is the first factor. People are like, well, if I have a YubiKey, then it'll force me for my YubiKey before I can do a password reset. And you're like, no, actually, that's not how the vast majority of apps work. They assume if you don't have your email, then you probably don't have your YubiKey. So it's weird how pervasive these assumptions are, because email is as old as the internet, right? The older the technology, the deeper and the more pernicious are the assumptions. And that's where all security comes from. 40 years ago, this made sense, said the person who got owned, So that's kind of how it goes in this business.
It's very true. Any other nefarious stories with email or questions, Tyler?
Yeah, I was going to say so thinking through that and just threat modeling, we know this is an issue, single sign-on SaaS and email connections or federation to these different things. We know this is a problem. What is the practical solution from both an enterprise and a personal risk standpoint? How can you combat this, and how can you go back and retroactively make this so that it's less of a pervasive issue and less of a threat to your personal security and your company security?
Is that a question for me, I hope? Because
yes, it is.
All right, sick. Cool. So I never can tell, man. It's the interesting thing that you said is, well, in an enterprise and a personal universe. And the cool thing is there's the one hopeful thing about Google and Microsoft taking over the world is it's kind of just the same technology either way. Every Hotmail account is kind of in an Office 365 account, right? It obviously is missing the $70 or whatever worth of upsells that Microsoft will sell you for a one Office 365 account with E5 Platinum Executive Black Edition or whatever, right? But fundamentally, at least the consolidation on Google and Microsoft means that we have a chance of doing something innovative for billions of people, right? So that was the big enabler. And honestly, our time at Dropbox helped us understand that, because we would start losing deals to OneDrive in like 2013 or 2014 or 2015. And you're like, why? And it's like, oh, because it's bundled with email, and everyone is consolidating their email on hosted Office 365 email. But in terms of what we actually do about it, like, it starts with what Paul was saying with these APIs, right? They have, like, people tend to think about email in terms of like MX records and SMTP and POP3 and IMAP, right? And those things are great. You know, they're not great. They're pretty insecure because they can bypass MFA a lot of the time and other terrifying things. And obviously Mimecast or whatever, as we're recording this, you know, lost a cert and whatever. So, you know, anything at like the low protocol level, you know, of email is sort of okay. But the point is, when you have an API, right, like, it's an application programming interface, which means you can take email from being a NetSec problem to an AppSec problem, you know, and that's actually cool. So, I mean, even simple things like, you know, when you know, if we have like a really useful building block for us, for example, if we're on a Microsoft or Google Cloud account, is some challenge mechanism independent from the potential threat actor in the model that you're using. So the most common one that we use, honestly, are like things like Okta and Duo, right? Which every person has been trained to have some out-of-band challenge mechanism. And you use it for logging in every 6 weeks or something, and it takes 2 seconds, and people love getting that Duo push. It's weird. Duo did a great job with that. But like, if we do something simple, like this is one of our features, like whenever we detect an incoming password reset, we actually hold it and modify it and turn it into an email from us. And the email says, hey, Paul, did you mean to reset like your Box account? If you did, press here, right? And then we can just hook up to whatever the customer or the user wants to be their challenge mechanism, something that's easy for the good guy and hard for the bad guy, right? And then, yeah, they say, yes, I actually meant to reset my Box account, thank you very much. Then we just, like, the APIs let us rewrite emails after they've been delivered, right? It's a really cool trick. And we, as far as I know, we invented it. And basically then we'll just change our email into the original Box password email, like poof, right? And now you have your Box password reset email right there. Because you can think about email as a file system, like as a content repository, not just data in motion, right? We talk about mailboxes, not accounts, right? So it's like that right there is like, and we use the analogy of like a seatbelt, right? That if you assume the attacker's in the mailbox being like, oh, whoa, nice Box file sharing link you got there, buddy. I'm going to just go to box.com and be the laziest hacker ever and just forget my password. And this is not hypothetical, right? You can find Twitter accounts like that get hacked this way because Twitter doesn't support SAML. It's like, I'm going to do it's 2021 and Twitter doesn't support SAML, but every president is supposed to use it or whatever. If anyone from Twitter is watching this, please allow an enterprise upsell where I can put SAML on my company Twitter account. I would be so happy. That's if I do one thing before I die, getting Twitter to support SAML would be okay, given how many people would declare war for things written on Twitter. Tangent, right? But the point is, like, think like a seatbelt, right? Like, if I assume the attacker is in the mailbox, right? If I assume you're going to hit something with your car, right? Like, if I just assume the consequence, and then I try and make that harder or break it, then you can find these individual workflows, right? Like, it's not about PGP, that's too low level, right? It's not about MFA because maybe I left my laptop open at Starbucks while I was peeing and the person next to me was, you know, some hypothetical, you know, Vladimir Putin stooge or something, you know? So like, it's just assume someone's looking at my mailbox. What can I do? And that's ended up being like a really like useful, you know, fecund, like, you know, process for us just as we think about ideas. And that's kind of how we develop our product. Like, what are the bad things that you're worried about that happen all the time? You know, phishing emails getting through, people spreading laterally and doing ATO, right? People running away with all my sensitive information, people paying invoices that they shouldn't pay. Like, just think from the inside out, right? Like, you're in the mailbox, what's going on? Not like, how do I block the phishing email? Like there's enough firewalls out there. I dig firewalls, but like, don't build another email firewall.
Yeah, I think we have mistakenly thought of email security as I'm going to use phishing protection, the firewall analogy, and the encryption. I'm going to use PGP, I'm going to use SMIME, and we're all going to be good. And then we're going to put all kinds of other things in place like SPF and DKIM, which really means other people have to do things, not just me.
Yeah, that's a social. DKIM is a social disease.
Yeah, and so we get this like false sense of security that, well, okay, I've secured my email communications. But go back to the first part, of this segment, and it's clearly not. Like, there's so many other use cases where there really isn't much. Sorry, Ryan, from what you're working on, right?
To scare the shit out of you, frankly. It's like, we heard this one from a super smart customer the other day, and it honestly hits everybody, which is, hi, people were signed into their work laptop on their personal email, all right? Or the other way around, whatever you want, right? And then somebody phished the happypuppy49@yahoo.com personal account, which has no firewall. If you have $1 billion to give, Proofpoint or Mimecast or any of these folks, solid products, honestly. Like, some people really like them, or Microsoft, right? Like, it's a Yahoo account, and then I send you some malware, and then you detonate it, and then I've got your work laptop, and then what's the first thing that I'm going to do after I pop your work laptop? Like, maybe open your Outlook and do whatever I can do in there, right? So you can pop work email without doing any phishing in any place. That anything anybody calls email security is going to do shit, right? Because email is what somebody wants. It's not just the way to get you. And everyone screws that up. It's really easy. So I'm going to de-cotton mather myself now, because I get pretty invective on this topic, as you might imagine.
Yeah, because Ryan, as diligent as we are as security professionals in protecting and securing our own data, how would we go do that in email? I mean, you can search in Microsoft Office 365, although the results are kind of like Bing. Now you can search in G Suite.
I think it's a SQL query under the hood that they're running.
It's horrible. It's horrible. And you can search in G Suite, and 80%, I think, is where I find
Google has some hidden black magic for indexing PDFs and binary files and stuff. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're the search company. That's why this is great.
Yeah, but I mean, you still get their ML is usually 80% accurate, and Google Photos is kind of the same thing. You get about 80%, right?
I think Google Photos is legit impressive, personally. I'll be like,
it is
me standing by Pumpkin, and it'll get it,
Right? Yeah, and I find it's about 80% accurate, but it is impressive, right? And so I think a really good use case for ML. But when we look at our own inboxes, short of trying to search them, which we've already identified as it's not the greatest way, how do we remove anything that could be sensitive for what we've already received or sent in the past? I mean, how far back do our email boxes go? 15 years? At least,
yeah.
Maybe?
I at least lost a hard drive in 2005, so I get to start fresh.
Yeah.
But that Thunderbird backup didn't make it to the cloud era. But no, in the case of all the content that you've got there, and that's one of the things that the attackers really love doing, which is just grab everything and then go through it at your leisure.
Yep.
Right. Like an offline attack your entire personal life, or even a year of corporate email. If you have a 1-year deletion policy, it's like there's so much good/bad shit in there, And so the naive solution is, why don't you just scan all the data and go beep or something, and somebody will deal with it, right? Like, in security, you can build a perfectly good product that all it does is scream at people, and then security people are like, I'm drowning in alerts, right? So detecting things is just the first step, and we do that. We look for all these different kinds of data that you wouldn't want to lose. It's a tricky problem. It's subjective. My favorite examples are just common sense things. Like I've got my 2 fancy college degrees that I point at when necessary, but I'm kind of an ML skeptic broadly, just not because the technology is not impressive and not because major advances haven't been made, but just because people are over promising. We need practical solutions. I love seatbelts because that's my security inspiration, is the piece of cloth that keeps me from flying into the windshield. Stop trying to detect things, just start doing simple things. And so if you're worried about all the stuff in your mailbox that the attacker can run away with, step 1 is detect it all. And then maybe the next evolution is then delete it, right? Delete all the stuff that's sensitive, right? And okay, but I like it. I don't want the Sophie's choice of do I keep? It's not Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind here. I want my data and I want my security, right? There's always these productivity versus security trade-offs that we give people, and then they're like, I choose productivity because I'm going to gather my rosebuds while I may, and like the attackers probably won't get me, and then spoiler alert, they get you, you know? So so deleting it would be progress, but would be user hostile, and you're the bad kind of security team, or you're the bad kind of legal team if you do that, right? So what we realized we could do, though, once again, like Google APIs and Microsoft APIs to the rescue, it's that if I can modify emails, then I can redact the sensitive parts and put a little retrieve button in the body of the email. And then what's the thing I talked about before? It's like if I have a super simple test that's easy for me, so easy for me, it might even be invisible, depending on exactly the threat model and whether I control my client and trusted device and all this stuff. Or just, once again, the humble Duo push, or the humble Okta Verify push, or the humble YubiKey touch, or whatever. You know, like these things are easy, an easy test for me. I can do it mindlessly, right? And then once you pass that test, if we can redact something, we can unredact it and give it back for like a couple hours or whatever, so you can do your job. Just rewrite the whole thread and then turn it back into a pumpkin again after a while. So minimize the amount of sensitive data that the attacker can get to without being able to totally pass the challenge. Turn things that aren't pointers into pointers, and then safely check the dereferences as fast as you can. That's computer science terms.
I love that analogy. That's
smart.
Awesome. Awesome analogy. But are you making the determination, I mean, you as your product, of what's sensitive and what's not? Or are you just basically redacting the entire archive, and when I go back, I got
all permutations are a thing. When you're talking to an individual, the right answer is like, we're going to do the same things. And this is where like I'm proud, really proud of the time that I spent at Dropbox. It's where I met a lot of my team, because Dropbox takes like the coolest, craziest hacks as a product. And it's been 13 years, so we all forgot how magical it was. Like when someone made green checkboxes in like Windows XP, and like the files started showing up, and it was like NFS across the internet with like a really good local cache. It was awesome. And so you make hard things look amazing, and you do sane defaults that work for most people, because you really can't screw with productivity. Otherwise, you are part of the problem. People are going to start forwarding everything to their Yahoo account, and then you're dead meat, you know? And so yeah, you just got to like do sane things. And then, yeah, we sell to some of the fanciest, the most amazing elite security companies and teams in the world, right? Like go to our website, material.security, security TLD, totally worth the $2,000. And like, it's such a dumb thing, but it's so cool. And then, like these companies, they want it to just work, and then they need the extra customization and whatever, right? And you go deeper, you have custom policies, you make it so that executives have this protection level and regular people have this, and you use the data to inform how it should be. You always look at where the risk is, but yeah, then you just do things like make a special folder called sensitive, that if the end user puts things in the folder, or a Gmail label called sensitive, and you just tag things, or set up a Gmail filter or a Microsoft rule to put all things from my most beloved spouse, into that folder or whatever. And yeah, like the right combination of sane defaults, like hardcore, like enterprise functionality and extensibility for those that need it, and then just end user crowdsourcing, like, you want to do your part to protect your own ass, frankly, then like that works okay. It like you have to balance these things, and good products strike the balance between instantly useful and eventually perfectible, and that's what we really try hard to do.
The right answer is in your configurable, right? It's up to
but
you.
Also sane ass defaults with crowdsourcing. Like my co-founder wrote this awesome blog post about like how to create security products that don't require babysitting, right? Because like configurable, like you end up hanging yourself with that as a buyer a lot of the times, right? You're like, I have configured myself into my own oblivion. I've made a rat's nest and everyone's unhappy with me. So like you have to like really balance that.
For sure. Now, Ryan, when you redact an email, and like you can redact it and then put it back, does that mean you're storing the original somewhere? And how does that work?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, you have to kind of give the customer control over where that data goes, but it is a net win. So we do have to store the original when we redact it. It's sort of like, there's a really complex analogy I used to use, which is like you have that super fancy family heirloom watch or something, in like Pulp Fiction terminology, it was up your dad's ass for 8 years in Vietnam or whatever. And you've got it, And, what if I could just get it whenever I need it, and put it in like a box on my bedside, but then it would just magically transport to the bank vault, after I fell asleep after that wonderful evening after, COVID or whatever, right? So like this, you want to put something somewhere safe. And especially with email, where you'll have many copies across an organization of the same piece of sensitive content, right? Like, there was 10 people on the thread and then someone forwarded it to somebody else. So you end up having a lot of copies that can pop of that, that one scary piece of, that one message body where the evil master plan to save the world was there, or some attachment that, is really sensitive. All the things that honestly came out from Podesta and Sony Pictures and Panama Papers and all the other times that this has happened when like a little email gets lost. You want to just take it so that there's one copy somewhere that the customer can lock the hell down. And it really depends on the customer. Like, consumers don't really care as long as, you have a good reputation and you have your SOC 2 Type 2 and all that stuff. But yeah, it really depends on the customer where they want the secure copy of the data to go. And, we're pretty flexible about it. It's just a byte store for us. So
does that apply to things like drafts as well?
Oh yeah. So you're talking about the David Petraeus dead drop threat model. The story I heard is they learned that from Al-Qaeda, because Al-Qaeda would do that. It's the most secure email is a pre-shared password to a Yahoo account, when you're just communicating in dead drop drafts to any, national security friends listening. I assume it's an old trick, and I'm sorry for any fallout from this. But you can do the same thing. You can modify drafts. Like, it's cool. Like drafts, there's always like a little difference between Google and Microsoft, because Google did its best to stick to the open standard that was email. You can tell that the people that designed it, like Paul Buchheit and stuff, like they were internet people. They were open standards people. Whereas Microsoft's Outlook is largely a child of Microsoft's evil era, so it's a lot of embrace, extend, extinguish. And so, yeah, they have a very different view on what email is. But, if you spend, 4 years of your life with some of the smartest, hardest working people in the entire universe, you figure out how to do drafts. So that was a really good question, though. I know this is not exactly a Q&A, but I love this topic. And the best part about it is I feel like we're actually everybody understands it. We have a love page on our site where people just tweet about us and stuff, and LinkedIn posts, and we kind of just share the ones that are especially cool. And so people get it because everyone uses email and everybody's worried about it. So it's a cool job, and I really appreciate you guys having me on the show.
Do you see anything from how the future of email or single sign-on, or even the migration of federation and or more adoption to cloud platforms? Do you see this as being a bigger issue that's going to have to be continually tackled through the stuff you're talking about? Or do you see a eventual shift from email to something else in which you'll have to kind of pivot and adopt this to a different communication line?
Yeah, no, I mean, we're not called material mail for a reason, we're called material security, and material it's a pun because material security means having enough stuff in economics. We want everyone to have enough. And it also means security that actually matters. It's material, damn it. So we're kind of dedicated to being the best at security and the best at user experience and creative problem solving and API hacking, for as long as these are a thing. So yeah, I mean, all of our IP and stuff is not, I hate patents, but ours are written generically because email is not the only content repository that can be raided by the bad guys. And there's a lot of other stuff. Frankly, we're talking a lot about how we prevent actual, data loss, a defense in depth. We call it leak prevention. We talked about the account takeover prevention stuff that we do, but we do a lot of other stuff. Just go to the website, you'll see. And so, yeah, we're not tied to email forever. I don't think anything important in security can be solved. Any vendor that ever says we've solved this is totally full of shit, and y'all know it. Because the way we use computers is constantly changing, and so the band-aids will fall off. So
yeah, Ryan, it's a good point. If we look at Signal, and I find it really interesting lately that the world is talking about Signal. It's the #1 downloaded app in many of the app stores, and largely that was fallout from WhatsApp. And when, people are like, well, I joined Signal a while ago. Like, I had heard of it, and I joined it, and, like, none of my friends were on it. And those of us in security...
A lot of my friends were on it.
Right? Those of us in security, we joined, we're like, holy crap, I've been missing out. Like, I'm late to the party.
My sister was on it, and she's an anesthesiologist. And I was like, what the hell you been doing, girl?
And it's gotten better, and more people are using it. But Signal's always had this concept of disappearing messages. And... does that replace, do we all move to that and then we don't need material.security? My argument is no, because no one...
I like your argument, Paul.
Right? Yeah, so,
if everyone does, we're going to be the best goddamn Signal security company ever, I'm not as cool as Moxie Marlinspike. Someday I wish to be approximately 0.3 as cool as him.
Right.
But, I mean, our mission is to help people use computers safely.
Yeah.
Right? Like, computers are so damn useful, but they're a double-edged sword, and we're really feeling the back edge of that sword right now, and I want us to feel the front of it, So.
And it's interesting, you've got disappearing messages in Signal, but I think a lot of people don't use that feature because...
You can screenshot them and they don't disappear.
There's that, and we like to refer back to our messages within
it's
Signal.
Real weird when I start looking for some piece of information, and I'm like, oh, wait, it was in Signal, and now it's gone now. Like the memory hole, like a la 1984,
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't store as much of the archive, right? If you have the desktop client, it will... it will, depending on where you read it, and depending on settings. I don't know. I haven't really dug into.
Depending on how buggy the desktop client is, from my perspective.
Yeah, there's that.
It's really hosed me. It's like spammed my contacts before. I don't use the desktop client. I stick to the Android one.
So also around kind of that and like the API hacking, is there use cases in which you guys are handling things like Teams or Slack, where they have those APIs, they have a lot of information. It's very similar to an email thread or communication channel where there is a repository of a lot of data. Can you see situations in where this could potentially be leveraged in that manner to help facilitate some of that DLP or potential sensitive data leak?
Yeah, totally. And there's a lot of awareness on a lot of customers that I talk to of like, well, I got this Slack thing now and it scares the shit out of me. So what are you doing about that? And so, yeah, it's not something we'll never do, right? It's just like, if we can make a dent in email, like I'm going to go to Disney World when it's open again, and then I'm going to come back and do Slack, right? Like you only have so much ammo that you can shoot at a problem. And I honestly, there's no end to how bad email is. And at least Slack is owned by Salesforce. So like it has somebody who's supposed to clean up that shit, but like email is not owned by anybody. And so it's going to take people like us to actually make it better. Whereas like you could just whine at Slack, and Slack has a security add-on. They have all these things, like they'll get good eventually, if Salesforce doesn't muck it up. So like all these other things that people worry about, they are somebody's problem, whereas email, it's like the internet. Whose problem is the internet? Like everybody's, I guess, so.
I've had one thing that's been going through my head in this conversation, and you may not. Are you familiar with the GRS 061 email retention requirement that basically says federal records have to go to NARA unencrypted for all to see?
I assume at that point they put them in the cave in Pennsylvania or whatever too. The OPM cave in Pennsylvania.
Well, not the hacked cave, no. But it's like, you talk about cleanup and you start looking at, they say you got to capture emails, IMs, chats, text, SMS messages, or you can't do any.
I'm pretty sure everybody's not doing that in DC right now, for the record. So the rise of Signal and WhatsApp is actually pretty popular, but the real one is when you get the WeChat. People use WeChat all the time in the top of the banking industry, and I hope not in government. So yes, but sorry, please continue.
No, it's cool. I was actually looking for your gut reaction because, while I'm bound by it and in dollar day job, I'm not super thrilled with it, and I'm figuring you would run into it a little bit.
I mean, like the difference is like we don't delete emails forever. We just help kind of securely archive them in this specific use case, and we're just talking about part of our product, to be clear. It's really the like email leaks are very captivating, but like there's more to what we've been trying to do than just stopping those. So we are already, I guess, stupidly ambitious. But yeah, no, it's just like allow the user to access data just safely. So I think retention is a good thing, but safe retention, smart retention, that's good retention, you know?
Purge the stuff that doesn't need to be saved.
I had a lawyer tell me once, I want to delete everything that makes me look bad and keep everything that makes me look good. Or like if I'm going to sue somebody, I want my email. If someone's going to sue me, I don't want my email. You know? Right. So it's inherently a really hard problem to get right, you know? So.
Oh, man. I don't know how often I've sent an email that made me look bad and I didn't plan for it to be. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, I'm an insensitive cad too, so.
You know, life happens.
Yeah.
You know, my problem with email is I need a neural interface these days, because when I send an email, my hands are always typing ahead of where my brain is thinking. And so it's like, and I go, whack, send. And then I read it back later. I was like,
they have the undo send thing. Disaster. Whoever invented the undo send thing in Google, where it just buffers it for 30 seconds, that person deserves the Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely.
my favorite is when people try to use Exchange with the recall message and it didn't go to Exchange mailbox.
Could I please take that back?
That's not how email works.
Nope. I know you wish this existed, but it's not a closed system, asswipe.
Yeah. When it was in a closed system, we had a closed system that was pre-Exchange. I think it was called Intermail or something for the Mac. You could actually unsend. It actually worked, but it was a closed system. Open system, not so much.
Yeah,
when it was all
storing forward.
When it was all Pine that we all logged into the same Unix system to check our email, you could recall it, right? If it was on that system, maybe.
You could sudo and delete it from wherever.
That's where I was going, right?
Actually, you know what? You can't knock Pine too much. That was a decent email client.
You know,
do you remember what Pine stood for?
No, I don't.
Pine is no longer Elm.
Oh, that's right. Because I was going to say there was another email client that was Elm.
And was there another one? The recursive backronyms thing, like all the Unix people were so damn clever. Like they're just witty, and I'll never be them. You know,
it's true.
We also learned how to make commands that were short.
We only had 8 bytes of RAM, and that's how we liked it. Yeah.
What was the other? What was Twitchy using for email? It wasn't Pine though. Some other text-based email client. Oh, God, I can't remember. He
came up with all sorts of weird shit. It might as well have been Pine,
right?
Remember that line in the movie Jurassic Park, the first one? I know this system. It's Unix.
It's Unix.
Yeah.
Hey,
it's
me too.
Yeah, no, I wanted to get me some Unix after that, because like who doesn't want to fly around their file system like it's an actual filing cabinet room? You know, it's like, is this a step forward or backwards?
And then I Googled for it, and it was totally not what I was expecting.
It was SGI, because SGI is what they rendered the dinosaurs on, and then it was an SGI like prototype or something is what I read. So they literally just took the visual effects machines and stuck them in the movie.
Yeah.
Well, you know,
Iris was a cool UI. It was great.
I'm glad we checked the box on Pine, though, because I think we'd be remiss to talk about email without mentioning Pine.
But the really sad thing about Pine, though, is, you know, we like there are people. We have a customer. I'm not gonna. This is something to be proud of. I'm sure she's proud of it. But she's wanted us to support text-based email clients. We don't really. It's not that we don't support the clients, though. The point that I'm trying to make is the clients that use open protocols like IMAP and POP. Mm-hmm. But IMAP and POP usually get to bypass MFA.
Yes.
And then you're fucked. So yeah.
It's so true.
So the old clients, they make you less secure, sadly. So you kind of have to use Google and Microsoft's clients or something that supports OAuth.
Yeah.
If you want to be modern.
Not MUT. It was MUT that Twitch used.
Yeah. That issue is actually becoming a thorn a little bit in some people's side. Recently, for example, Outlook on Mac OS, they had that. Hey, go to new mode. As soon as you switch to new mode, IMAP protocol support disabled.
Yeah, no, it's new Outlook just makes me confused. I'm like, I guess I'm an old person now. I don't know how to use my computer anymore. Let me call a grandkid that has
says
to be
the guy
born.
that's about 17.
I'm 33, going on. You see my wrinkles and my sunken eyes?
What wrinkles?
I work too much.
Oh. So what does that make him? 25 now?
33. Okay, that's the Jesus
Oh,
died
you're
age.
still a
Right?
baby.
Okay, I'll try and when my joints are creaking. I think you can
take it
people
while you still
age at
can, Ryan,
different
because
rates.
they tell me like they don't say that to me anymore, and like I feel like they used to.
You know what my favorite part about my workout sessions recently is when I kick the butts of the 30-year-olds.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sure you would totally kick my ass in any workout session. I can't really lift my 15-inch MacBook anymore.
But you don't need to because it just stays on the desk because you're always at home now.
Correct. Correct.
Oh, awesome stuff. Awesome
Ryan,
stuff,
just
Ryan.
for comparison, my kids are 38 and 44.
Okay, I get it.
I think the right
don't feel
response is
bad.
thanks,
always
Dad.
the
Ryan, was there anything else you wanted to share with our audience this evening?
No, I mean, just go to the website. Let us know what you think. Like, we work our asses off. Feel free to tweet at us or whatever. We'll put it on the website probably if it's cool or funny. So, and yeah, we were in stealth mode for like many years, and so we kind of unveiled the damn thing with all the fancy customers this summer, and it's just been like a pretty wild ride. So, I'm just looking for people to share it with.
Awesome.
You know?
Well, for folks that want to learn more, you can visit securityweekly.com/material security. Ryan, thank you so much for appearing on.
Are we doing 5 questions, Paul?
Well, we're gonna. I was thinking that, but we're gonna rewrite the 5 questions. Do we want to ask Ryan the 5 questions?
I will do whatever hazing ritual is required of people on the show.
Why don't you email them the 5 questions?
Oh.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, at Jeff's request, we'll maybe continue 5 questions for a little longer until we rewrite them.
You had some good standard ones, and then we had a couple we wanted to remove. But you had some replacements for that.
Why don't you give a trial run or one or two?
It doesn't have to be the 5 questions. It's
just ask them 5 questions.
Yeah.
No. Now you put me on
man,
the spot.
change is hot.
I'm getting nervous here, guys.
I am too. All right. Well, when we get to question 4, I'll open it up for everyone else to ask a question. Ryan, 3 words to describe yourself.
Overworked, but happy.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
Email?
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
Maybe.
Okay, maybe this was a bad idea.
Is this too laconic? I mean, like, I think I'm trying to figure out what my autobiography is going to be, and it's probably just going to be, well, no one's going to read this. So.
All right, who's doing question number 4, Larry? I don't remember what I suggested as a replacement for question number 4.
What is the land speed velocity of an unladen swallow?
Swallow, right?
African or European, sir?
Ah!
There's the rebuttal.
I don't know.
Okay, question 5. Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
Alive, dead, living, or
Fiction.
otherwise.
Or otherwise.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise. It's been so long.
Come on, Larry.
So fictional dead people are still considered celebrities.
Yes.
I guess I always assumed that.
Yeah.
That's a
All
thing.
right. Let's see. I'm reading random old history books right now, and so I'm super into the Byzantine Empire. So I feel like there's some things that I could learn about really great empires in decline that would be relevant maybe for America right now. So I'd probably pick like Justinian as one of them, and then he'd pop my eyes out because that's how Byzantines do it. The other one, let's see. I don't know. I don't have enough heroes right now. If I pick Justinian, I'm out of ideas. Yeah, maybe just I kind of like George F. Kennan, like the guy that designed containment and then subsequently disowned it post Cold War or during the Cold War. So I like kind of 20th century history a lot too. So maybe two gay dads, Justinian and George F. Kennan.
Perfect. Okay. So I have a question.
That's pretty obscure. I'm sorry.
I'd like to do a 6th question because I want to try out a 5th question replacement.
Okay.
Okay, so what is your favorite Star Wars movie, and why is it Empire Strikes Back?
Yeah, I was gonna be like Empire, and then maybe some Empire. Because occasionally I'll be like, that's not true. That's impossible. You know, like that's the only reason. And yeah, I had probably a password at some point that was Wampa Stampa, which was the code for Shadows of the Empire on Nintendo 64.
Nice.
So no, Empire is just the best, and I think it's because like Irvin Kershner or whatever his name is didn't let George Lucas muck it up. He's like, you're the idea guy, I'm the director.
The director, yeah.
You go over there, sir, and just play with your Jawas, okay?
Agreed.
So.
Yeah. Ryan, thank you so much for appearing on Paul's Security Weekly this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
With that, we'll take a short break. Coming back, talk about Ubiquity Security. Stay tuned.